What's up, guys? Lead meteorologist John Choquette here for what is going to be a fairly complicated forecast that's honestly going to be broken up into two different videos. So we got a lot to talk about. We're going to thank our sponsors right away, C3 Group, Merlin Law Group, and American Contractor Show. You will see their ads show up periodically throughout this video. We're going to jump right into it, and the one word that you guys are probably going to hear me say a lot is the cap. So my top headline is, might as well make a cap drinking game at this point for the amount of times we're going to be talking about it. The amount of times you guys have probably heard it if you're in Oklahoma or in Kansas or in Nebraska over the last couple of days. So we're going to break down what exactly is a cap and why it is such an integral part of today's forecast for its complexity. But this is, regardless, we're going to see probably some really big hail today. Storm Gabriella, which is what we named this one. Giant hail is possible today, or I guess kind of stealing this from Reed Timmer, the gorilla hail is very possible today across some sections of the after corridor. We're going to break that down as well. And then we may see some strong tornadoes today as well. The conditions are very favorable for any storms that do form. They could have long track, strong tornadoes. So we're going to break down where we're thinking that's going to be for today. And honestly, we're not even going to have tomorrow's forecast or looking ahead to a pretty active pattern here going through this weekend into next week, because today has been so complex and ever evolving. I was changing this forecast literally to about, I don't know, what, a minute and a half ago, I think, as I look at Justin. So there's a lot to go over. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to have a forecast update later on as well as Derek doing a breakdown on TikTok in a little bit also. So before we get to that, we have a couple events coming up here. C3 Group, which is one of our sponsors. We got Lunch and Learn here at HailTrace. So this is in Edmond, Oklahoma, on the 3rd floor. It's going to be on May 10th. Hopefully if there are a ton of storms, people coming to this Lunch and Learn will see us being super active here, see me on the green screen, all that fun stuff. So come check that out. It's a free event. You can learn a bunch of fun stuff with C3 Group. We also had the Contractor Blueprint Seminars, another thing here in Oklahoma City on May 13th. So that's 3 days later at the River Oaks Golf Course. So come check us out there as well. A lot of cool stuff. It's all in the text in here. You can screenshot it or whatever. So come check that out. So what's going on right now? So currently here in Oklahoma and Kansas, we have clear conditions. You probably had some cloudy skies here in Oklahoma City and some gusty winds a little bit earlier. We actually have a storm here in Missouri that's been chugging along all morning here. Had up to some golf ball size hail not that long ago. And the big thing that this is leaving behind is a little outflow boundary. So it's essentially a track for a storm to follow and also trigger for storms as well. And this is actually easing to the south. It's closing in on Wichita right now and seems to be starting to slow down. So we'll be keep an eye on that. Otherwise, it is warm across a lot of the area here. It's 77 in Dallas. You have clouds. We are warming up very quickly here in Oklahoma City and areas off to the west by Wichita as well, into the upper 70s and low 80s here at the noon hour. And with that, we also have some much higher dew points. The moisture is in place for some big storms today. 66-degree dew point here in Oklahoma. It's actually outpacing what a couple of the high resolution models were forecasting for this time. So that gives greater instability for storms here across the Central Plains, and with that brings the chance for hail. We're going to jump right into the significant hail model for today, and the reason I'm showing this is because it is showing potentially some very, very large hail all the way to Nebraska, down along towards Wichita and into the Oklahoma City area. That's at 5 p.m. We move forward a little bit here to 7 p.m. Look, it's maximizing over the Wichita area, pretty much across Kansas down towards Oklahoma City. Even as we get to later in the evening after dark, the chance for a large hail does extend as well into Oklahoma for any storms that do form along this area of instability. And then this all shifts to the south as a cold front begins to push through in the late overnight hours tonight. So this is a different look at our future radar. So this actually has the cap on it. That's a drink. And then we also have the precip on here as well. So this is the radar and this is the cap. So the blue is the cap. So this is what is keeping storms from happening at this exact moment. This is a snapshot 12 p.m. from what the model has. This is obviously kind of overdoing precip for some reason here in Kansas, but you get the general idea that since there's no storms, you have the cap in place. As we push forward here to about 4 p.m., notice that cap disappears off to the west, and then storms begin to form along it. This is one particular run of one particular convective allowing model, and we have seen all different kinds of stuff today. Every single run of the high resolution rapid refresh model, the HRRR, the HRRR, kind of called among the weather nerd community, hasn't been showing anything. And I actually didn't bring that model up because it hasn't been showing anything. I did bring up a different model here. This one does show storms form by 4 o'clock, but they are all showing the cap eroding west of Oklahoma City, eroding near Wichita, and then all the way up into Kansas, much further into Kansas as well, which would set the stage for some storms to form this afternoon about 4 or 5 o'clock. Here we are. I got paused at 5:30. Notice we have some big storms over Wichita, and it's becoming more likely here that we'll see some big storms in Wichita and also storms off to the southwest of Oklahoma City. This particular run has the cap come back here about 6 o'clock, which might be a little overdone. And it has storms near Oklahoma City, and then we get to about 8 o'clock, and then again, this is one particular run of one singular model. I could show you all the models and all the runs, but we'd be staying here for an hour. So needless to say, we are very likely going to see storms here across Kansas, and then the threat here in Oklahoma is very conditional. I'm saying maybe a 50-50 chance here across central Oklahoma to have a storm form. If anything does form, it's going to be brutal here across central Oklahoma, but I think Kansas and then up into Nebraska as well, which we'll show in a minute, we'll definitely see storms. And then as we get through tonight, everything rips to the south. We have a big cold front that rips through the area. Somebody's asking about Kansas City. You guys don't want me to talk about Kansas City ever on the video, so I'm not talking about it. So I'll come up in a minute, but I'm not talking about it right now. So overall, what is the cap? You guys hear about it a ton, especially if you're in the plains here. So essentially all it is I have this all showing up here. As the day heats up, warm updrafts form, right? So you have the warm air lifting up as it warms up to the 70s, 80s, 90s, etc. As long as the temperatures keep falling with height, everything continues to rise. So you have that warm air at the surface, and it rises up, right? I mean, you even see the warm air, the weird like wavies on the streets and stuff in the summertime. All that warm air will continue to rise. As long as the air is cooler, it'll keep going higher and higher until eventually it gets to the cap, which is an elevated area. This is currently here in Oklahoma and Kansas. That's coming from the horrible drought in the desert region on the desert southwest, Texas Panhandle, etc. And since also the fact that Amarillo and New Mexico are significantly higher up than Oklahoma City. So Oklahoma City is about 1,200 feet, and then Amarillo and getting up towards Colorado and New Mexico, you get closer up to a mile up. So it's much higher in the air. So that warm air gets pushed over top, and that is why you have a cap in place to keep storms from forming. Now, the big question of the day, the million-dollar question of the day is it going to get warm enough? Is the cap going to erode enough? Is this area of warm air going to get thin enough for a storm to pop through and make big-time hail, make tornadoes, etc., or is this going to hold in place? Now, when the cap does break, you get that. All you need is just a little bit of weakness and sufficient heating, as mentioned. It goes and boom, big time storms. There is a lot of instability today, and conditions are very favorable for tornadoes, thus the elevated risk of the chance for some big storms, all questioning, does the cap break in Oklahoma? Future radar up in Nebraska, though, does show they're definitely going to break the cap here in Nebraska. Folks from North Platte to Grand Island to Lincoln and possibly even Omaha, you're going to see storms later on today. This is actually the latest one of the models. A lot of storms formed. Big question mark for everyone in Nebraska is, do we see individual supercells for a long time, or does it turn into a line of storms like this? This particular run has a big old line of storms as it approaches the Omaha area. That would have initial hail, maybe in the Lincoln area, but by the time we get to Omaha, it looks like more of a wind threat, and the hail threat really starts to go down as the storm system rips across. Storm Gabriella is going to rip across Nebraska. Hail side today, we're talking all about that available instability, so it's no surprise that I'm saying that somebody's going to see probably softball-sized hail today. The conditions are very ripe. You get a big-time storm, you're going to see some big-time hail today. May not be every storm, but I would be probably not putting in a bold prediction saying if any storms break the cap in Oklahoma that we'll see at least baseball-size hail. I think that's a pretty easy assumption. The big question is whether or not storms actually form. So with that, C3 Group sponsored hail forecast. There you go, Justin. I put that in there. We have for today. Notice like a lot of purple here. So this extends all the way down to the Red River, right? But the chances of the storms having up to that over tennis ball size hail comes down to my little pins here. And some of this I changed again right literally seconds before I went live. Oklahoma City, I have you in that moderate. It's looking again a 50-50 chance, right, that the cap breaks here in central Oklahoma. So I'd say that's a moderate chance. It'll be 1-2 storms, right, could form. I have the most significant area just to north, from Guthrie points north. I think it's very likely that we see a big storm form up by Ponca City, even closer to Enid. I think it's very likely a storm is going to form this afternoon, and it could have some big time hail. Tulsa, much lower chance. I think any supercells that do form, they'll get, if say we get one that forms by like Chickasha, it would probably start to get pinched off by the cap by the time we get close to Tulsa. So we got a lower chance for big storms there. Further to the north, I have a high chance now in Wichita. It looks like the outflow boundary we've been watching all morning, so that's a little track for storms to follow, is starting to stall out near Wichita. So it's very likely a storm's going to form just here west and rip across here. So high chance of storms there. Moderate chance here for Topeka. Kansas City, again, the Topeka sign's really close. Kansas City, I'd say a low chance. I think you guys are going to see storms later on this evening, but in terms of the big hail makers, I think it's very likely it's going to stay off to your west, probably west of I-35 here in Kansas. Further to the north here, I have low chance for North Platte, and then low chance for Omaha. Areas in between, probably a moderate chance overall for storms, and I think that's going to be probably one supercell that forms to make big time hail. The best chance being I-70 from probably just to the east of North Platte all the way to about Lincoln, Nebraska. So that's what we're looking at for hail. Let's break it down by city, starting with Oklahoma City here. Timeline 6 to 10 p.m. here for the metro. Max hail size, I'm saying, extreme. Could be if we get a storm, it could have very large hail up to 3 inches or even bigger in diameter. Also a tornado risk as well. Moderate chance of at least core size hail. So again, that's a 50-50 split on whether or not the cap breaks, and I keep it low overall for that very large hail because again, the cap could break, could get a big storm, but it could end up skirting past just the south of Norman, and Norman gets quarters and nobody else gets anything. So that's why we're keeping that low chance overall for the very large hail. Now Wichita, Kansas, you have a much higher chance for storms today, so a little bit more colorful here on this map. 5 to 9 p.m. here for Wichita. Again, hail size, same basic idea. Could be very large with any big storms that happen. High chance of hail. I think it's looking likely now that we're going to see a storm form in and around the Wichita area with this outflow boundary beginning to stall out near the city. And with that, so moderate chance. You guys get a storm, I'd say probably very likely that storm's going to have some monster hail with it and possibly a tornado as well. So again, could be pretty busy here this afternoon. Be watching this super carefully. The big thing is also of concern is the tornado risk. Again, this will be sponsored by Merlin here, or American Contractor Show, one of the two. And we have, I have a hatched area here. This is your best chance for tornadoes. I have a low chance here in Oklahoma City, and this is conditional. If a storm forms, this could change very drastically. This could go from low chance right now, so conditional, does a storm form, to, oh God, storms are forming, we're going to change this real quick. So this is subject to change. I have the most significant area, which is going to be your best chance for a strong tornado, so that's EF2 or greater, just barely to the north of Oklahoma City. I brought it all the way down to the Oklahoma County line, right? So north of there, any storms that form, strong tornadoes, I'd say, would be probably pretty likely with any isolated supercells here. So I got that moderate chance here for Wichita for tornadoes. I have a high chance here in Topeka and extending to just south of Lincoln. There is extra shear, so that's spinning in the atmosphere for big time storms to make tornadoes. So a little higher chance here in Topeka. I think the storms will be more messy further north. You can get north of I guess this is I-70. Crap, which one's that? 80? I-80 there. And then I-70 here. North of I-70, I think there will be tornadoes, but I think they're going to be grungy. They're going to be hard to see. It's going to be very probably likely rain-wrapped. So chances is there, but I think we'll see. We'll see. It'd be hard to tell. Moderate chance here in Lincoln. Tornadoes and low chance over by North Platte. Here in Omaha, I think by the time storms get to Omaha, it's going to be much more of a strong wind threat over a tornado threat. And this timeline overall, this is going to be from starting about 5 p.m. and extending to about 10 or 11 p.m. overall for this entire risk area. That's going to be your prime time for when these storms could be tornadic. So we'll be watching this, of course, very carefully, everybody. And hey, you have the sound at full volume there, Justin, and it picks up on my mic. So we have can't take this guy anywhere, you know. So most of risk cities overall here. Wichita, I have you at the highest risk, and Topeka moderately high. Oklahoma City, that moderate 50-50 chance. Lincoln moderately high, about the same as and then moderate low chances from Grand Island. And there you are, Kansas City. I got Kansas City in there. That's a low moderate chance for any hail in the Kansas City metro later on today. So this is going to be the last slide I got here, guys. I don't have tomorrow on there. I don't have looking ahead to next week. It looks like we're pretty active, but it took a while to try to square this all away. But no worries. Derek's going to go live on TikTok, break down the forecast more for today, and then probably look ahead a little bit as well. I think he'll be doing this 1:30 or so. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that jazz. We're all at HailTrace. Easy to find us here. We will be back at about 4:35 time frame. Keep an eye on your notifications. We're going to do a forecast update for later on today as we get closer to storm initiation. And we're going to also have the forecast for tomorrow, which does include Chicago. And then we'll also kind of look ahead a little bit to next week. We have a couple more risks. Sunday looks like could be a good severe weather day. Monday has the I-35 corridor from Wichita to Dallas. Tuesday, I don't remember. And then Wednesday could be a repeat of Monday from the I-35 corridor from Wichita to Dallas. So a lot to talk about. There is a ton of stuff here, guys, coming up. We are now entering May, like it should, busy with severe weather. So give us a call, 855-334-4245. Obviously, any giant storms happen, we'll be here answering any phone calls you got. You can email us at info@hailtrace.com or visit our website at hailtrace.com for more details. We'll be back later. Of course, we'll do live coverage as well. All that stuff will be here. Make sure you don't miss it. See you later.